Okay, I think we'll get started. It's a little after 3, but welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Julie Shields Rutina, and I am the Director of College Planning, Education, and Training at MEFA. And I'm joined by my colleague, who is the Director of K through 12 Services, Jennifer Bento Pinion. And we have a terrific webinar for you today. So it's entrepreneurship as a post-secondary pathway. And I will just tell you a couple of things about MEFA, and then we will move right on to logistics of the webinar. I will introduce our speakers and we'll go from there. So we can show the next slide. So I think most of you know MEFA, but we are a state authority that was created in 1982, and we help families plan, save, and pay for college. And we have loans, low-cost loans for families who need that type of financing. We also have the state's college savings plans. And then everything else we do is all about free guidance to families, to students, to parents, to school counselors, to college administrators around the college financing process. So we're glad you're here with us and taking advantage of this MEFA Institute webinar. Please know that you can receive professional development points for this webinar as well. And a couple of logistics about the webinar, you can go to the next slide, Adanma, is so we are going to record this webinar today. So we'll send you the slides and we'll send you the recording tomorrow. So you'll have that so you don't have to take copious notes. And you can also share that with any of your colleagues who might miss this today. In this area, I know there's been snow, a little storminess today, school cancellations. So we will be sending this webinar around to folks, but if you'd like to share it, please do so as well. And if you have a question during the webinar, just put it into the Q&A section and we will get to your questions. We're happy to answer all of those. And if you need live transcript, you can click the closed captioning button. And with that, I'll just briefly introduce our presenters that I'm so thrilled you're going to get to hear from. I think you can go to the next slide also. Let's see. Yes, we're so fortunate to have Adanma Ude with us. She's a regional director for the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, which is better known as NFTE. And what a great name that is. And we have Liza Morale, who is a NFTE alumna. And she's going to talk with you all about her experience with different programs and how she's carrying that forward. Right now, she's a sophomore at Brown University. And so with that, I am going to turn it over because there's just so much to hear from our expert presenters.
Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you, Jennifer and Liza, for joining me today as one of our Star Nifty alumni. You are just so amazing, and I'm really excited for all the counselors and any of the educators on today's webinar to be able to just hear more from you about entrepreneurship as a post-secondary pathway. And I'm also going to be sharing some of my experiences. I've had the privilege over the past 3 years of Regional Director of Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship New England, to be able to work with thousands of youth entrepreneurs who are either thinking about entrepreneurship as their post-secondary pathway or are incorporating the entrepreneurial mindset into what they are doing as their next steps, as they're thinking about transitioning from high school. And so again, it'll be me and Liza here today for the conversation. And then in the next slide, I'll be able to tell you all a little bit about the webinar. So again, I know that you all probably guessed some things from the title, but the participants will hear student stories and learn about resources and recommendations geared towards supporting students who want to start their own business or to incorporate the entrepreneurial mindset into their steps to success. Some of our students are going to go out and they're going to just do really amazing, vibrant things in the workforce, but we cannot discount or leave out those students who are also going to be able to create and drive the workforce for some of those opportunities as well. And so just really quickly for our agenda so that people know what they're getting into, we already went through our introductions. You're going to learn a little bit about what is Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. We're a 36-year-old organization, and we bring a lot of historical value and knowledge into working with youth entrepreneurs and supporting them on their pathways. And so we'll share a little bit about that. And then the conversation between Liza and I will kick off, which is definitely going to be one of the best parts. And then we'll save time at the end for some questions or Q&A, which that function, I believe, Julie pointed out, is available inside of the Zoom platform. So just to kick us off, Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, we are a global educational nonprofit. We started about 36 to 37 years ago, where the founder was really interested in how do we activate skills that we know that youth already have or already come with and empower them to be able to own their futures. And so as you see here on the slide, our vision is to ignite the entrepreneurial mindset with unique learning experiences that empower students to own their futures. And so as we go into the webinar a little bit more, I'll be able to share with you all what is an entrepreneurial mindset and what does that mean for our students and what can that mean for your students. Our vision is that every person will own their future, and our purpose is to lead the global movement for equitable access to entrepreneurship education. So we have served since 1987 about 1.3 million students. We serve about 45,000 students every year globally. And now you'll be able to see in a few slides sort of what our footprint looks like. We offer 10 really awesome programs that are an incorporation of curriculum, volunteer engagement, and also wraparound supports for teachers and students to really be able to think about and infuse their classrooms with entrepreneurial concepts, the entrepreneurial mindset, and career readiness skills. NFTE can be found in high schools, middle schools, summer camp programs, post-secondary institutions, and community-based organizations. And we serve usually youth around ages 11, going on into 24, but even beyond, because we have a very robust alumni community that stays involved as they continue to go out through their, whatever their steps are, however, wherever they are in their journey as they're completing their NFTE program. So this slide here shows you some of our locations in the US. Anything that's highlighted in the dark purple or the darker shades is where we're currently located. But I know that even like for New England, like we now have a partnership in New Hampshire. And so we are continuing to expand. And this slide here shows our global reach. When your youth join or when youth join the NFTE program, and when teachers join and schools join our NFTE program, they're not only connecting with a network that is here in the US, it reaches beyond those boundaries. This slide here just shows a few of our program partners, shout out to them, who are already working with us to really be able to help to activate and nurture that entrepreneurial mindset in youth. And one thing I'll say about our partners is that we're always looking for more partners, and we're always looking for more ways to be able to work with and create and drive impact for our youth. And so this slide here is one of my favorite pieces of NFTE, and it is the entrepreneurial mindset. And these different 8 elements here is our approach to infusing the skills that youth are able to practice and activate through a project-based learning environment within their classrooms or out of school time programs, where it threaded throughout our NFTE lessons and units are these entrepreneurial mindsets. So our organization is extremely intentional about making sure that youth are practicing this mindset that prepares young people for success through life. And one thing that you'll notice about a lot of these mindset is that they're skills. Some people call them soft skills. I like to refer to them and have heard them referred to as power skills, because these are skills that we all use every day that help to contribute to our success, like flexibility and adaptability, communication and collaboration, and opportunity recognition. And as youth are working on these skills and flexing this entrepreneurial mindset in their classrooms and in their out of school time programs, when using our NFTE programs or using other entrepreneurial programs that your schools or districts might have, they are practicing skills that they're going to be able to use and really is going to help to prepare them for the rest of their lives. And so my favorite is communication and collaboration. All of our youth take what's called an entrepreneurial mindset index, which helps them to identify what are their more stronger entrepreneurial mindset domains and what are some entrepreneurial mindset domains that might be a little challenging to them that they can continue to work on. And so, jumping in a little bit more into our topic today and transitioning away from necessarily what is nifty, but sort of why do we do the work that we do? It continues to evolve, and we continue to find that youth are still really, really intrigued and excited and motivated by this idea of entrepreneurship. Definitely, as we think about COVID and the impact that that had, there was definitely a lot of negative things, but one of the things that we've been able to sort of learn more about is that Gen Z or are the youth who are in our schools today are really interested in business. They're very interested in entrepreneurship and how they can approach the different problems and challenges that they face from a solution oriented lens. And doing that and through our programs, we're able to watch youth take things that are important to them, their communities, their families, and solve challenges that are impacting them through these entrepreneurial ideas and ventures. And so some really cool data facts is that 45% of Gen Z reports being very likely or extremely likely to start their own business one day. And the number of college students majoring in entrepreneurship, like Liza, who was on the webinar with us here today, rose 7.3%, even though college enrollments fell. We know that we're starting to see more of a trend of youth getting back into college and thinking more about how can college be a beneficial component on their pathway. However, we see now that even as youth are doing that, the rise in the interest in entrepreneurship is there. So this webinar is sort of just on time because we are helping to have you all start thinking and starting the conversation around how do we support youth and something that is growing an interest to them. The future of work is entrepreneurial. That is a fact. 90% of employers identify entrepreneurial skills as very important. So when you go back to slides to those entrepreneurial mindset domains, those are the skills that they see as important. 65% of the jobs youth entering school today will do not exist yet. And that is one of the facts and one of my favorite facts, because I think that it shows that there is just so much room for innovation. Sometimes we see the things that we use every day in our favorite products and we go to our favorite stores and we're using our favorite apps. And we don't think about that there were youth who are sitting in our classrooms today who are going to help to either be able to enhance what's already there in a very entrepreneurial fashion or be able to create something new in an extremely entrepreneurial fashion. I would also say that 1 in 3 US employers want to hire people with entrepreneurial experience. So the experience that our youth are getting inside of our nifty classrooms, the different internships and workforce development agencies across the state that are thinking really creatively about how do we connect students through workforce development to entrepreneurial experiences are really creating and helping to meet this demand. And then also some other really cool fun facts is by 2027, which is not far away at all, 50% of US workforce will be freelancers. Some of those might be some of your students. And 20% of those freelancers are earning a six-figure salary or more. So the entrepreneurial pathway is not only a pathway where youth can be able to really think about achieving economic advancement for themselves and their families, that's also going to be a pathway that continues to grow and become more competitive. So how do we support our students and success to do so? And so as we think about the entrepreneurial experience and thinking about what our youth are thinking as they're planning their next steps out of high school, I want you all to stop and think really quickly. And I know that the chat is disabled, so you don't have to necessarily put it in the chat, but this is a thought that I want you to carry with you, is think about a job that exists now that did not exist 15 years ago. And think of a job that may exist in the next 15 years that does not now. And that will really help to frame your mind around when your students are coming to you and they're saying, I want to start my own business, helping them to really understand that this is a real possibility because the world and society is ripe for new opportunities and for innovation. And so when we think about entrepreneurship as a pathway, I think that it's important that we highlight that definitely entrepreneurship can be a pathway directly to college. But some of the youth you may be talking to may be interested in entering into pathways in different ways. And so when we think about these pathways, we wanted to ensure to highlight that it's important to think about it in a way where we are helping students regardless of where they are and meeting students where they are and being able to think about how do we push them forward regardless of what they want their pathway to look like. So some students might go to college for entrepreneurship. They might apply, and we'll hear more from Liza. She's in the picture over to the right with my esteemed colleague Jen and some other really awesome students who was doing some entrepreneurial workshops with us out in Chicopee a few summers ago. Um, and some of them might enter entrepreneurship directly through the workforce. They might want to leave high school and go to work. And at the same time, they might be thinking about how do they start their own business. Or for the next bullet, some of them might start their own business going straight out of high school, or might have a business that is actually operating while they're in high school and they're thinking about continuing to pursue that. This conversation is going to also help to give recommendations to the educators on today's webinar about, regardless of where they land, college, workforce, entrepreneurship, or doing both. Maybe they're going to go to college and they're going to pursue their business, which is something that we've seen from our nifty alumni. We find that there are ways to support them all, and there are some common recommendations that regardless of where they're going to land, that there's really great ways to be able to help them along that pathway. And so sorry about that. So if you see a quote here, this is Jennifer LaSala. Her story is featured on our Nifty website. She is a New England native, and her story is she actually owns an allergy-free bakery called Jennifer Lee's Gourmet Bakery. And she is just outstanding. Her story is there. I can put a link or share a link with Julie and Jennifer after for you all to just hear more from her. But she discovered her passion for entrepreneurship within her Nifty class. But really, she went to college and she to Johnson and Wales, and she was able to really just overcome a lot of different challenges that led her to starting her own bakery. She's opened up multiple locations now. She's even won Massachusetts Young Entrepreneur of the Year and is able to hire family and friends and create opportunities amongst her community to be able to continue to run and thrive through her business and her passion for baking and for helping others with severe food allergies. And so I won't give it all away. I'll let Jennifer tell her story by sharing the link later, but please follow up and figure out ways to be able to continue to collect artifacts and stories like the one that you'll hear next from Liza about just some recommendations on how do we support our youth, regardless of how they're going to walk their pathway. If they're thinking about entrepreneurship as being their destination, how can we support them? And then just my recommendations. And Liza will share some recommendations specifically for the counselors and educators on the call. But these are just some recommendations that I think and that Nifty and the rest of the organizations and teachers and students that we've worked with and that I've worked with over the past 3 years that I've seen have been really important for helping to develop youth entrepreneurs on their pathway. The first I would say is skills. For my first recommendation, I believe that students should engage in exploring entrepreneurial topics and knowledge. You may not have a partner at your school like Nifty or some of the other entrepreneurial programs or partners. However, there are some really awesome ways that students can be able to engage in resources. Some free resources that you can find on our Nifty website is like a lean canvas, which is almost like a one-pager business plan that students can build over time as they start to think about their businesses. Business plan competitions, there also might be some local in your community, or now the virtual world has made it possible to where there's lots online. And then other programs that really help students to start thinking entrepreneurially or starting to exercise their ideation muscles where they're thinking of ways to be able to solve challenges. The mindset. we went over the entrepreneurial mindset just briefly in the earlier slides, but the entrepreneurial mindset is something that is super valuable for students because it can help them to develop transferable skills that regardless of if they're going to college, if they're going straight to be an entrepreneur or going into the workforce, these entrepreneurial skills can help them to really be able to develop this mindset that's not only going to be attractive to employers, but help to ensure their longevity as they're working through their own pathways. And then next, I would say network. Liza's gonna talk a little bit later about what networking was like for her and sort of how she was able to utilize her community. But I think it's important that regardless of what youth want to do or how they want to do it, for them to build and utilize a diverse network of supporters, coaches, and mentors, which I know that a lot of you on today's webinar are already a part of that village. How do we figure out who else within our networks or who else should our youth want to have in their networks, and how do we help them to bridge that gap from them figuring out where mentors are and how to contact them to actually being in contact with them and being able to and starting to develop a relationship with them to where they're able to really acknowledge and understand what it means and what the benefits of having a network who is supportive of you and who can build connections and opportunities for you and how that can help them to push forward. And then certifications. It's important that students are able to build up their resumes and other things that are going to help them to sustain themselves as they build out their entrepreneurial ideas and being able to prove to their stakeholders and different individuals who might be invested into what they're developing that they're really serious, but then also have a certain level of understanding about the work that they're doing. And so there is a certification called the Entrepreneurship and Small Business Certificate that is offered through Certiport and Pearson. And that certificate helps to be able to give students a industry recognized credential that really helps to ground them in the entrepreneurial concepts of small business framework so that students are able to say like, yes, I know this. Yes, I can do this. And that they also feel really confident in themselves having that certificate and being able to show that to either employers or colleges or individuals as they're networking with them about their business or business idea. So I am going to stop sharing now. And we are going to move on to a really exciting piece of this webinar. And I'm going to I'm going to actually pass it to Liza to introduce herself. And then we'll kick off into our conversation. Sounds good, Liza?
Yep, sounds great. Thank you so much, Adama, for the intro and giving us, an amazing overview of, I think, all the great things that Nifty does. And the recommendations also, I think, super important. We'll touch a little bit more on some recommendations towards the end. But just to give a little bit of an intro, my name is Liza, and I am a, Nifty alumni. I went through one of the courses that Adama mentioned and then continued working with, various programs and workshops and summer programs. And now I'm a sophomore at Brown where I'm studying business economics and then also entrepreneurship. So, just a little bit about me. But I know I'm excited for the good conversation that we're gonna have, Adama.
Awesome, Liza. Thank you so much for that. And as we kick off into this conversation, and it's going to be a conversation because I'm going to ask Liza a series of questions, and then Liza's actually going to take the turn and she's going to ask me a series of questions. And the reason why we did it that way was we were really thinking about our audience. And we know that the call is full of educators who are really hungry for this information about how do they support students. And so we wanted to give it from an alumni or a student perspective, and then we wanted to also think about it from an administrative perspective. So you all will be able to learn a little bit about how I work with teachers and how we work with youth to be able to support youth entrepreneurs as well. But to kick us off and to jump right in, I'd love for you, Liza, to take us back a few years. I know that it might feel like a lifetime, but now to your senior year in high school, what was it like deciding to go to Brown? What was it like deciding to go to college?
Yeah, no, definitely. And Adama, you were a huge, huge part of that process as well. I can remember, first opening that acceptance letter and this kind of, shock and excitement for a few days and sharing the news, with my support network. And that after this initial just like, wow, that that this feeling, I think, eventually it kind of settles in, and then I started thinking about, well, this is awesome news, and I think it's a really great problem to have, that, deciding, I have all these awesome, colleges to choose from, just thinking about, which one really would be the best fit for me. So I think one of the first things that I did is just, pinpointing what I wanted out of my college experience. And a huge piece of that is tapping into that network that, Adama, you were talking about, talking to my mentors right at the time, would also be Jen, who you all saw in that picture and on that slide, and what their thoughts are, what they know about different schools. And at the time, I was also considering, Babson College. There's a huge focus on entrepreneurship, and it's close to home as well. So that would have been, a really, really nice way for things to have worked out. And also talking to alumni of the school, I think that was a big help. And a lot of these, I think, tapping into my network entails really just getting on LinkedIn and, sending random messages, right? Or, just sending random emails to the schools and being like, hey, I have a couple of questions. I'm wondering, if anyone can talk to me. So I think that was a really big piece in building my network and just being curious, and ultimately, I think I chose Brown because of this big commitment to entrepreneurship across different disciplines and geographies, really. So I think there were three main reasons, that really solidified Brown for me. The first is the Center for Entrepreneurship here, that it provides seed money from $250 all the way to 25,000, right? So that I think was an amazing thing to see through pitch competitions, which I've been a part of here over the past 2 years, and this certificate in entrepreneurship, which is sort of like a minor, but it provides, I think, a really practical field of study in entrepreneurship, and also, a lot of partnerships with local organizations, right? And I think along those lines as well, just access to a really flexible education. Brown, I think, is well known for having its open curriculum, and that's where, I think that I have the privilege of being an economics major, for example, and taking Latin American studies, right? Which is, I think, very, very different, but it's a place, to really just explore different interests that don't seem so directly aligned. And the third would have just been just, the distance, I think, from home. I'm also, from Massachusetts. So I'm from a city called Framingham. I'm not sure if people on here know, but Brown, I think, is kind of that sweet spot, where it's close enough so that I can visit home, quite often, but also far enough so I feel like it was a new challenge in this, new space to explore. But I think throughout all of this, the excitement of making that commitment to Brown, really, I think it was just a culmination of all the great conversations I was having with, these amazing mentors and, alumni and my family, and thinking about, where would be the best place for me.
I love that, Liza, because what I'm hearing is one that like you definitely flex your entrepreneurial mindset when it came to just like communication, collaboration,
Exactly.
and also like comfort with risk. Because you're like, I have this one option that's really close to home, but then I have this other option that's a little bit different. And I love that the question that you asked yourself was, what did you want out of your college experience? Because then you're able to also inform your network as you're guiding with them when they're like, oh, well, maybe there's this thing. You're like, oh, but I really actually love this thing about Brown. And that ultimately helped you to make your decision. So utilizing your network, doing your research, putting on your entrepreneurial hat sounds like what really helped you to think about how to make that decision. And I think that that piece is important for us to really start from, because counselors and educators who are on the call are working with the Lizas who were, just a few years ago in that space where maybe there were students who have abundance of opportunity like yourself. And maybe there were also students who are like, I don't even know what my opportunities are. How do I figure that out next? And maybe one of the questions that counselors can ask is the one that you pose is like, well, what do you want out of your experience after you leave high school? Which I think is super, super relevant. And it allows the student to be able to bring their voice and their wants into what their plans are going to be, because like there's so much noise about like what you should do or how you should do it or where you should
Right.
go, that when you actually have grounded yourself in what you want, it'll help you to be able to navigate those different journeys.
Exactly. And I just want to add too, I think sometimes, being a student, I remember talking, right, to different teachers and having that question, well, what do you want out of a college experience? And sometimes I think it's maybe easier to even, verbalize what you're not looking for, and that, kind of narrows it down. Something that could also be helpful for, just mentors in general, trying to guide what, youth might want to do. I remember kind of having this idea of, it wasn't super solidified, but the more I talked to people that had been in my shoes, before, or knew, understood what was important about a college experience, it really helped guide and solidify my opinions as well. So I don't think it's quite set in stone, but I think the more that research is done and more conversations are being had around the opportunities that are available, it becomes more clear what the student would want.
That's huge. So not only what you do want, but if you don't know what you do want, usually people know what they don't want, right? Like I don't know what I want to
Exactly.
eat, but like I'm not gonna get this because I know I don't like that, right? And so it's like, and that usually will help people narrow down their options. I think that that's a great question. And something, an artifact that the counselors can really pick up from today's conversation. So awesome. Moving into our second question, can you share more with us about your introduction to entrepreneurship? Because as we're on this webinar, we're really tapping in with counselors who are like, my, a junior and my or a senior and my school came to me and said that they actually want to start their own business. What do I do next? So I really want to hear about like what was your introduction to entrepreneurship and how did you decide that that was what you wanted to pursue after high school?
Yeah, definitely. So it was, I think the first time that I really understood what entrepreneurship was is in a course offered by NFTE. So at my school, it was a year-long course offered. I took it my sophomore year. And it was very funny because I can remember in the first, couple months of the course, not even remembering how to spell entrepreneurship because it was so new to me. So we would always be in class and thinking about it. And we're like, is there a T as an R? So because it was just, not talked about as much at the time. But that was my really first, my introduction was this course that culminated right in the end in this business plan or business pitch. And students created a business pitch, could choose to put that forward in a regional and national competition. And so I think that throughout this course is really where the world kind of opened up to me in the form of all these new opportunities because I felt that I had, all these different interests, whether it was sports or school, whatever it is, but entrepreneurship seemed like this lens that I could really apply to any environment or any field of work, right? Thinking about economics, right? Or even, computer science, whatever it is, entrepreneurship, it's something that you can take and apply in any field of work or study. And throughout this course, I really just loved hearing from other entrepreneurs, collaborating, putting together business plans, getting coaching, and just feeling this kind of sense of collaboration, the risk taking of it, innovation. I think that was great. Adama, I don't know if you remember, but around, I believe it was the end of the course was in the beginning of the calendar year of 2020, which was around March 2020, right?
Mhm.
When the pandemic, I think, officially shut things down. And so I think that was a point where I was really, kind of forced to make a decision on whether I wanted this course to just kind of be a course, right? That in the midst of, all this chaos, just kind of, let it go and in the, a little bit of the confusion of like asynchronous school and online school and, how do we organize all these things? So at that point, I think really was when I chose to continue and despite all these unknowns still pursue the business plan and the business pitch, which ended up going super well because I placed regionally in New England, and that
Yeah.
was, I think, a super new experience, and I definitely would not have pushed myself if it wasn't for Jen and the rest of the Nifty team that were on there cheering for me and helping me out through the different new and experiences that we really couldn't have predicted at that point. But yeah, I think it really was just kind of faced with the decision, right? If you want to keep going, it's going to be a little bit tougher,
Yeah.
but looking back, so much more rewarding as well.
That's so awesome, Liza. I just remember so much of your journey during that time. And like my introduction to you was like you were like, I want to start this entrepreneurship club like at my high school. And then and you reached out to Jenny. You was like, can you share feedback on these thoughts? And it's just like, it was just the way that you were approaching like what you were doing in school and the way you networked amongst us. Like you were just so entrepreneurial, and just like really brought that mindset into everything that you did. And I loved it that whether you were our summer fellow, right? Because Liza was able to do a fellowship program with us over the summer, or whether she was a nifty student at the time, or even now as alumni. She just really does a great job at um, picking on her network and knowing how, and she said random, but it's not random. Her outreach is not random. It's extremely intentional. And she's looking for feedback from people who she knows has some sort of understanding or expertise or opinion about something that she's doing. And so, leading into our third question, I would love to hear a little bit more about who were your mentors or influencers during this time? And can you explain how those relationships have impacted your journey?
Yeah, I think something that we, touched briefly on has been a little bit of my experience with Nifty, right? I started my journey as a student in the course, and then I think really a beautiful, full circle experience where I worked as a summer fellow, and then from being a summer fellow, I think really getting really, intimately mentored and getting advising from both Adama and Jen, who I think I've mentioned quite a few times, and maybe she'll be able to, join on some other webinar. But it was just an amazing experience because I went from being a student to, a part of the team. And then towards, the last couple of summers that I worked with Nifty is creating another program, right? So using those entrepreneurial skills I had learned with Nifty to create new programming, right, for other students to also get a similar experience to what I received in working with Nifty. So I think that influence of just, opening up to the world, right, and seeing these new opportunities and realizing that, these programs are offered and they're great, but even in being able to think like, if there is a need that's being, that's not being met quite yet, we have the, flexibility to create something new, right? And I think that opportunity, that space, and that freedom to just, innovate. I think that is something that was really important coming from, my advisors with Nifty and my family as well. I remember sitting at the dinner table, right, and getting super interesting ideas just from my family, just throwing around, ideas, mentioning the projects I was working on. This, those kind of silly moments that you hear a lot of great things as well. So I think both formal mentorship and also informal, just, relational advice.
Yeah, I know for many entrepreneurs, they say that their friends and their family and community are their first customers. And so,
Exactly.
absolutely, like those are great mentors and influencers. And then you also mentioned myself and Jen. And I know that earlier in the conversation, you mentioned just like teachers and other educators around you, that you were really able to lean on during this time to help make this decision. And so I think that when we think about like takeaways for the educators on the call, one of the huge ones is like, push your students to think differently about their network, right? Like maybe you are just
Yes.
sitting around having dinner, but maybe now this is also like a mini or micro like business planning meeting where you're like getting if anyone at that table is a part of your target market, right? How are you asking them things about your product that might be of interest to you for later on? And that's just something that I know that entrepreneurs do in very formal but also informal ways. And it just sounds like you we're really taking that mindset not only on your business idea at the time, which was an amazing business idea, guard. And sometimes I see them and I'm like, that's Liza's idea. But then also they using that and applying that same concept that you had to use when you were developing your prototype or when you were going through coaching for your business idea. So now like I have this life idea where like I'm thinking about entrepreneurship as a post-secondary pathway, like give me advice, right? And or like support me in this way, or what do you think about this? Or this is not what I want. Do you think that that's going to align with the experience that I'm going to get? And all those things are really powerful. Wow, time is moving. I just did a time check for myself and I'm like, oh, it's always moving when you're having fun, right? So we have a few more questions, then we'll do a quick fun rapid fire round. But the next one is now that you are in your sophomore year of college, I would love to hear two things. Well, a few things. First, I would love to hear three things that you've learned now that you're in your sophomore year. But I'll also couple that with the other question of, are you pursuing any current entrepreneurial ventures? And you don't have to join those together, but for some reason, I feel like they're going to all tie in.
No,
But
yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. So, I think really exciting is throughout my last 2 years at Brown, I've always been involved with, entrepreneurial ventures and in some way, right? I've done a couple of pitch competitions before individually and in a group setting. And so this semester I'm really excited because I'm in a course in a class where I'm actually building a business plan with a group. And so this is for a class credit, which I think is really exciting. I think that's one of the ways I've been involved with entrepreneurship recently. And we're kind of working with our target market as college students, right? I think for, I think mentors and educators who are on here and counselors, if you have students that, are trying to start an idea or even want to build a prototype, for example, maybe you don't have the specific knowledge to be able to, help the student create a prototype. But I think even connecting them with someone who might know something, I think that piece is super important and even working with resources that are available. So I'm, doing a business that has college students as the target market because they're easily available for me to do research and things like that. So like I think that's been my entrepreneurial venture of the season. But I'm also working with a student-run venture capital group. So actually, fund entrepreneurs. So working a little bit on both sides of the table. And I think from these two really exciting experiences, one of my main takeaways has really been just to see how important it is to throw yourself into new environments, right? Not be afraid to adapt. That was kind of my transition into college. And I think that, every day, every, week that passes by, I see more and more that, hey, that session that I attended, a webinar like this one, for example, you always take something away. It's, a new connection that you'll make that, I think will be super useful down the line. And I think for those who are in the webinar right now or who will be watching later, feel free, to contact me, questions, connect me with your students. I'd be more than happy to talk through, whatever questions or just, be a listening ear for your students. I think, that going that extra mile really does count. I think that'd be my main takeaway from all these experiences, in the last couple of years.
I love that so much, Liza, because I remember your nerves about like you're really close with your family, and so just
Yeah.
transition into a new environment, even though it was the sweet spot of being like away from home, but not too close to home. It was still really important for you to just be a part of a community, and it sounds like you've really been able to achieve that as you have navigated your way through your sophomore year. So just congratulations to you as being someone who has watched you grow so and do so many great things. I don't know anything about like investing in other or operating, a venture fund. But like you're doing those amazing entrepreneurial things. And I just think that it just continues to grow and show and prove the point that we're showing here today that like this pathway through entrepreneurship for students can be one that's not only lucrative but exciting and fun, right? Like you saying, throwing yourself into new environments, meeting new things, learning new people, networking, and developing
Yeah.
lifelong lasting relationships that can really help to influence an individual in their output. So it's awesome. Cool. So we'll have some fun in our rapid fire round, and then I'll pass you the mic. And oh, actually, no, I'm skipping like one of the most important pieces here. And that is for you to give us some recommendations for the educators on today's webinar for supporting youth who are interested in entrepreneurship as a post-secondary pathway. And I'm actually going to share my screen because Liza pulled together some slides as a resource for all of the counselors on the call. And you all can like screenshot or take pictures, but I'm sure that Julie and Jennifer will also share this out afterwards. Just bear with me 1 second here, and there we go.
Great. Yeah, so these are some recommendations that I wanted to just specifically detail for helping stimulate entrepreneurship throughout high school, right? So I won't read completely off the slide. I think that, it'd be helpful for you all to look with more detail. But, big things I think are students, they have, energy and passion. So just helping to funnel that into the right spot and encouraging students to explore their interests and passions early on regardless of how silly it might feel, sometimes students think that they're caring too much about something. And I think just solidifying that and giving confidence that, they should, it's good to think creatively and to try to, create a new solution and solve a problem that might not have the best solution just yet. And doing that, through collaborating with others or, seeking out other entrepreneurs, other connections, right? Just tapping into a network. And I think expanding that network as well. As counselors, have a really significant role in the lives of young people because you can, I think be the person that I think really pushes a student into, trying something that they wouldn't have otherwise done, and that can make all the difference for them. I know for me, Nifty was definitely that change maker and that catalyst. And so the last two bullet points, just thinking about how to provide access to different resources, whether it's a program like Nifty or different workshops or clubs or competitions. I think, online there are so many different events that are available and open for people to register and join. So that can be a super awesome opportunities. And then also just thinking about how students can seek mentorship, with professionals that are in fields that they have interest in. I think people are definitely interested in, passing on some of the lessons that they've learned. And so making those connections, I think, is also one of a really important role in being, this advisor figure in a student's life. And, these are just some lessons for students throughout high school. I think we have some things also for, looking at entrepreneurship post high school. I think that would be the next slide. Adama, just, a couple other lessons. And these are a little bit more detailed, but, not all students are thinking about college. Some students might want to go into entrepreneurship directly. And so just thinking about the business opportunity and, is it viable and how students will continue to explore that, whether through different incubators, or pitch competitions to have access to, that seed money, or if it is college, thinking a little bit about how I, narrowed it down and solidified my choice at Brown is what students are looking for and how that school's, geography, opportunities, curriculum will all support the entrepreneurial environment that student is looking for. And I would definitely encourage taking a second, to look at these a little bit more in depth. I wish we had time, right, to talk about it in more detail, but these are just a few, things that come to mind when I'm thinking about, tips for counselors.
And the one thing that I loved about your tips, Liza, is that the steps or the tips that are for the students who are thinking about other than college can absolutely still work for the students who are thinking about
Of
college.
course.
So discussing how much time the student intends to devote to their venture and also search for incubator accelerators. Like students who are in college sometimes do those same exact things, and they'll be able to meet that common ground with some of their peers who maybe or maybe not be in college as well. So I just love these recommendations. I absolutely encourage all of the counselors here to either reach out to Liza and I or to really read through these because they're really concrete and helpful. And we talked about a lot of these already throughout the conversation, so some of them might also feel a little redundant. Yeah. Also, excuse me. So I'll stop sharing again, and I'll pass you the mic, Liza. And spend
Awesome.
about like 5 minutes on those questions, and then we can turn it over to for a little bit of Q&A.
Yeah, so Adam, I think you have a super interesting and also important role, right? As an educator, regional director. So, you talked a little bit about what your role with Nifty has been, but just I think it might be helpful for the counselors to hear what your day-to-day with Nifty looks like and which days are your do you love the most, right? And thinking about all that you do, what kind of work do you really look forward to doing throughout the year?
Absolutely. So, one of my main goals as regional director is to help to be able to create this amazing experience for more youth. And that's a fun job, right? Because I am out working with educators, school districts, school leaders, community leaders, and community-based organizations to be able to bridge together exactly what you said. What is the need? What do
Right.
they have as the need for their community and their students? And how can Nifty help that? And sometimes it's through full year programs like yours. Sometimes it's semester-based programs. Sometimes we're working with them through the summer, or sometimes it's workshops or different ways that we're able to engage and support activating this entrepreneurial mindset. In my day-to-day, I get the privilege of working with Jennifer Green, but I have to shout her out. She is an outstanding, outstanding educator and a supporter of youth entrepreneurs. She has worked at Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship for going 15 years. So she has just a tenure that really brings a wealth of historical knowledge, but then an eye for innovation because we are an educational nonprofit, but we are all in this organization extremely entrepreneurial. So her and I are able to continue to innovate and create new experiences like the one that we created with you, Liza, and that you led the charge on workforce development programs for young adults all throughout Massachusetts. And so we're really excited. And I'm really excited to be able to continue a lot of that work. And my best days are what we call our gas station days. This is when Jen and I feel like when our tank is empty, we go to fill it up. And it's usually, I would say, when I'm with students and volunteers at the same time during our coaching sessions. It's beautiful to be able to see the mix of young adults or youth or students who are just really excited and ripe for connection and knowledge. And then adults who have gone through these experiences and regardless of where they are in their career, taking time out of their day to come and give back. So for me, those are like the beautiful pieces of our program. And it really creates this well-rounded impact of our program where they're not only like thinking of these ideas, but they're able to sort of test them with professionals who bring a certain level of lived and professional experience to help support. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think you touched on a few things, right? All the different programming that Nifty offers, and then the beauty and after all this behind the scenes work, right? That you do, you get to go in person and work with students and see that collaboration, right? Coming to life, which I think is one of the best parts of being in an entrepreneurial environment is getting to work with people, right? And hear
Yeah.
their different ideas and kind of, the brainstorming behind it. So that's awesome. And I think in addition to the mentoring, right, and the coaching the students receive, what do you think are the most significant opportunities that Nifty has offered for its active students?
I think one is that we partner with spaces where they already are. I feel like them not needing to take Nifty as like, and for some youth, like Nifty is their internship or their summer job, but that's a whole other piece that I could talk more about if anybody wants to learn about it. But for a lot of youth, right, Nifty is happening in their classroom. So like they're gonna like go to period one, but they're gonna be able to really think differently about like how do I like students can really actually come up with a real and our nifty youth and alumni do all the time. I think that it's 25. We like 1 in 4 nifty alumni are likely to start a business, which is a lot
Right,
higher than the average. And I think it's because they're being able to activate these entrepreneurial ideas and flex it in a space that might be a little bit safer than like I'm trying to start my business after school and like so nobody really understands because I'm spending all my time
right.
like doing this one thing instead of like getting an after school job or babysitting or or being playing a sport or whatever it is they might be investing in their entrepreneurial idea. They're able to kind of do that within the safety or of a classroom and the support of a caring or loving teacher or educator who is committed to this. We train our educators, we train our teachers, we provide them all the support and so it's not something that even for the teacher or educator, they're out there alone. So for me, the one piece is that like we sort of are able to ingrain and infuse in spaces where students already are. But the other piece for me is the mentorship and volunteering, which I know we already said that one, but I think that that one's a huge piece of it, is that them being able to like practice what it means to network, and really being able to connect with professionals who are able to show them not only that like you have this great idea and I believe in it, but also that like I believe in you and like what's your next steps, what's your journey and who they are as a whole person.
Right. No, that's totally right. I, couldn't agree more. I think hearing, right, from people who have the experience, getting a bit of an outside point of view, right, is super helpful. And Adama, I wish we could, stay on for so much longer. There's so many questions that I want to ask and keeping the conversation going, but I do want to close out, I think, our, conversation with just hearing from you throughout these, different entrepreneurial experiences and, education endeavors. What do you think are, most helpful practices that you've seen from teachers, counselors, and influential adults to best help their students learn entrepreneurship and really feel supported to, go after their entrepreneurial endeavors?
Absolutely. I think it's about developing their relationship with students to be able to hear what it is that they want to do. I think that listening is one of the best first tools that we can use is like our ears, right? And how do we help them do what you did, Liza, which is like, what do I want? What do I not want? And what does that mean? And I feel like the counselors on the call have so many tools and resources that help students to do that. And entrepreneurship is one where they can still use those tools, right? It just might be a different concept or a different conversation. And because a student who might want to start a cleat guard business is going to need totally different supports than a student who might want to start an app-based tech business, right?
Right.
What does that mean about your network and who you are, right? You might not have anyone in your network who can do those things, but then also how do we model for our students what success looks like, right? Like maybe it could be like, I don't know anyone, but let me ask this question. And you also couple that with like, hey, student, ask this question to this person. And you are starting the steps of like, what does it mean to network and do research and using a lot of the entrepreneurial muscles that we discussed in today's webinar. So yeah, I think it's about like listening and connecting and developing that relationship so that we can help them to or to uncover what the possibilities really are.
Oh, well, we are coming upon time. I will
Mhm.
just first I'll just ask in the audience, are there any questions that are burning that you would like to ask while we have Adanma and Liza here? And I'll just quickly ask for each of you. Liza, I'll ask you if can you just give maybe one example of how you seek out other entrepreneurs and how those conversations go, or if you can even think of one example, a recent example of how you've sought someone out and how you began to talk and work together.
Yeah, definitely. I think LinkedIn has definitely been, I think, a big tool to reach out to people and being able to see, I'm not familiar with, who this person is, but even being able to see, like, I have, one mutual connection in our network. And I think that what happens a lot of times is I am interested in this startup, for example, right? And so I'll ask our mutual connection for a quick introduction. And I find that people are very, very kind and will make that introduction, right? And so beyond that point, it's coming with the curiosity and saying, hey, I love this experience that you're in. I was wondering if you could take time to just tell me more about it. And so I could ask you a few questions. I think that's been, a great, I think, skill to learn is to just
Mm,
ask the right questions. And again, what Adama was saying about learning to listen, right? I think that's where we take a lot of lessons from is just listening to the stories of other people.
yeah. Oh, I want all uh, young students to hear about this. I think this has been so wonderful to hear all these details. And so then I'll ask you, Adama, how if counselors, if teachers want to get in touch with you, what are the next steps they should take to learn more?
Absolutely. They can visit www.nifty.com. There is a space where they can learn more. It will send an email to programs at Nifty and it will be sent directly to me. And then also they can find me on LinkedIn. My name is I know you'll share the slide, so they'll be able to like see the spelling of my name there. And then also just any like literally be super entrepreneurial, right? Like go and Google me, right? No, I think that email and then LinkedIn would be like some of the best ways or contact us through the website. Yeah.
Oh, I can't thank you enough. Jennifer and I texted behind the scenes about a lot of different points that were so important for I was going to say young people, but for all people to hear about the entrepreneurial mindset. So I don't see any questions, but thank you all. And
Thank
again, we will
you.
send the slides. You'll have contact information for both Adama and Liza. And um, you'll have the slides, you'll have the recording, and share that with others that you think would also be interested. And we're hoping to have another workshop like this for students, directly for students. So be on the lookout for that upcoming in the future. And again, thank you. What a wonderful way to spend the afternoon learning about all this. Thank you both so much.
I agree. I agree. I hope everybody's staying warm with our like kind of storm that we're having.
Yeah.
And everyone staying safe. And thank you so much to Julie and Jennifer and to Liza. I just cannot thank you enough. You are just a joy to always work with, and I'm just so proud of all you accomplish, and I look forward to seeing what you do next. So thank
Thank
you.
you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good
Bye,
afternoon.
everyone.
Thanks.